Do you have kick-ass pirate shanties memorized to spout out in the middle of a fight and psych out your opponents? Have you ever led a revolution on a small island nation whose independence ended up threatening the United States? Is your face on the currency of your country? It's impressive that these massive, life-changing accomplishments for people like you and me are just backstory for the subject of this video. But such is the allure of Jun Guevaru, the man they called Mr. Second in terms of succession, until it was solidified in terms of position as well. Clearly inspired by the Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara in his origin story and appearance somewhat, Jun Guevaru was one of the more intriguing additions to Baki Hanma, and as you might have guessed from the title of this video, a lot of that has to do with his anatomy. So let's dive straight into it. This is Jun Guevaru's Anatomy Explored. The other unchained in Arizona State Prison, Jun Guevaru's introduction to Baki. Before we get down to the details of this guy's insane physical resistance, because trust us, insane is the right word for that sort of thing, let's talk a bit about what Jun Guevaru was built up as in the story. After punking out Muhammad Ali Jr. in the final stages of Baki's great Rai Tai tournament arc, the titular protagonist calls out his father for a fight, and to everyone's surprise, Yujiro actually accepts. Now, Baki's dad is called the world's strongest creature. There's a reason Yujiro Hanma has a personal pact of friendship with the United States of America. It's because he's embarrassed their military on multiple occasions with nothing but his bare fists. He has defeated all of the world's strongest fighters with nothing but brute strength. And just before Baki put Ali Jr. to sleep, Yujiro outplayed the 146-year-old kung fu genius Kaio Kaku using nothing more than his brute strength. Despite preferring not to use it, Yujiro is a martial arts expert with more worldly knowledge on the subject than anyone else in the series. In order to prepare for such a fight, Baki needed to prepare himself by facing someone that was much closer to Yujiro's level than Ali Jr., and he found that man in Biscuit Oliva. The unchained VIP jailer of Arizona State Prison and bounty hunter extraordinaire is acknowledged as being nearly as strong as Yujiro Hanma by the man himself. Oliva and Baki had a couple of tense exchanges when Biscuit was in Tokyo helping track down and capture the world's most dangerous convicts. In order to confirm to himself that he was capable of taking on his dad, Baki decided to fight the next best thing and got himself arrested and put inside Arizona State Prison as an inmate. He thought he could just walk in, have his fight with Biscuit, and then leave, having reaffirmed his conviction in his own strength. As it turns out, Baki was but one of 4,000 challengers inside a prison full of them, and he wasn't even the first person in line to challenge Oliva. There was another person in Arizona State Prison who was already earmarked to be Biscuit's next opponent. They called this man Mr. Second, not because he was second on the power scaling tier list of the facility, but because after Biscuit Oliva, he was the only man who could lay claim to the title of being unchained. The reason why Biscuit Oliva gets the lavish treatment he does is because, well, no one can defeat him besides Yujiro, and his cooperation with the US government in catching criminals is really a favor he's doing for them more than anything else. The rest of the prisoners in Arizona State Prison are treated like worthless scum, not worthy of the oxygen they breathe, except one guy. That guy, of course, as you might have guessed from the title of this video, is Jun Guevaru, and we learn the reason for it pretty early on in his introduction. Guevaru is an eccentric fella who sleeps inside a locker and goofs around like he knows nothing, but when it comes down to business, he has earned his reputation as being the second unchained in Arizona State Prison. He makes it pretty clear with his first fight in the series. Pirate turned president who's a martial arts expert and a stone-cold killer. Jun Guevaru's crazy backstory. A lot of people are put into Arizona State Prison for various horrifying reasons, and Jun Guevaru is no exception to that rule, except that he's completely different from every other prisoner in that he's president of an island nation as well. As you've probably already guessed, Guevaru's look and backstory are inspired by Ernesto Che Guevara, a South American communist revolutionary who ended up becoming one of the most impactful political figures in Cuban history. Che lived an exceptional lifestyle, biking across Latin America, leading guerrillas in warfare against imperialists, and being responsible for the catastrophic response to America's Bay of Pigs invasion. Guevaru also is the leader of an island nation within the Bakiverse who has stuck it to Uncle Sam on more occasions than they'd like to admit, but that's where the similarities between them come to an end. Instead of biking across South America, Jun Guevaru spent his youth as a pirate on the high seas, surviving the harsh conditions with nothing but sea shanties to fill the days and survival to fill their nights. Earlier in the series, Biscuit Oliva told one of his targets that the reason his skin is as hard as steel is because he uses an old bare-knuckle fighting trick to keep them that way. He claims he rubs salt all over his body to create a sort of exoskeleton effect, or at least that's our best understanding of the damn thing. Guevaru survived for months on end in the salty ocean with nothing but hard tack and the like to keep him fed and functional. That kind of a meager survivalist existence hardwires toughness into your body and brain, and this is part of the reason why Guevaru just starts singing bawdy pirate songs in the middle of a fight, because it psychs out his opponents when combined with his literal rock-hard body. However, at one point in his life, he ended up making a change in career trajectory and decided that he would protect the people of his small island nation from capitalist invasions. He learned a bare palm style of ninjutsu from his grandfather, taught it to his most trusted men, and took back his island nation from the capitalist invaders, eventually becoming its president. Guevaru's face is on the currency of his home country, as we find out towards the end of his time on Baki Hanma, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. Once Jun has established his country as a rebellious haven for independence, it was only a time before the US retaliated with harsh measures, like they're wont to do with Cuba back in the day. So Guevaru had one of his trained students infiltrate the Secret Service and get on the president's detail as a means of having one hand around his neck at all times. He even went so far as to attack the president himself, which is what ended up getting him put in Arizona State Prison. But it feels like that was by design because since his first appearance, Guevaru has had one goal: to beat Biscuit Oliva, and he's proven with each subsequent appearance that he's got some chops to prove it. He knows everything about the mind and body and isn't afraid to use it against his opponents. The insane anatomical knowledge of Jun Guevaru. Jun Guevaru doesn't look like a very physically imposing person. He's barely a few inches taller than Baki, who himself is 5'6", and he appears to be more stocky than muscular in his orange prison uniform. He's got wispy facial hair, long head hair, but he usually covers it up with a bandana. What's really remarkable about him is his supposedly relaxed attitude, because that makes him that much more dangerous when he actually gets serious. Guevaru's first conflict in Baki Hanma takes place with another convict who used to be a sumo wrestler. Our Yokozuna is upset with the fact that despite being in Gen Pop, Guevaru gets special treatment from the guards, like getting free cigarettes and having all of his out-of-line behavior overlooked, just because he's the so-called second. Sumo Guy tries to assert his dominance by turning a spoon into a fork, but Guevaru outdoes him by bending a spoon into a corkscrew by doing nothing more to it than wiggling it around. This of course enrages Bakizuna, who threatens to kill Guevaru, but what Guevaru does next establishes him as being insane from a mental and physical perspective. He takes a guard's gun and hands it to Yoko and tells him to pull the trigger and aim for the head like he was Johann Liebert. The sumo wrestler goes to do as he's told, but Guevaru lands a nut shot on him before he can pull the trigger. The time difference between Bakizuna being able to have fired off a round into Guevaru's skull and the actual nut shot itself is barely measurable in milliseconds, which makes Jun's reaction time faster than the lock time for most assault rifles. For those who might not know what that means, the lock time is basically the delay between pulling the trigger and a bullet actually leaving the nozzle of the gun. Assault rifles are preferred in combat situations because their lock times are extremely low, which makes dodging their bullets extremely difficult. This is perhaps why he is one of 3 people in the world considered to be more dangerous than any machine gun in existence, the other 2 being Yujiro Hanma and Biscuit Oliva himself. After taking such blatant disrespect to the crown jewels, Bakizuna challenges Mr. Second to a fight, who obliges him, and then does something even crazier than what we just told you. Guevaru takes his opponent to the prison gym with guards in attendance to oversee the whole thing and decides that they'll have a sumo match. The sumo wrestler is a good 1.5 feet taller than Jun, and most easily outweighs him by 100 kilos minimum, but once they lock up, he is unable to even lift the much smaller man. This is because Jun's core and center of gravity are so heavy, it feels like you're trying to suplex a damn tree. While the sumo wrestler was struggling to even get Guevaru off his feet, Jun displayed his knowledge of the human anatomy by making it so that his opponent would never be able to stand straight again in his life. The cochlea is a part of our body that lies inside our ears and is very important for maintaining our sense of balance. If the cochlea is damaged, vertigo can become the least of your problems. This is part of the reason why when you're on a flight, you feel like your ears might burst given the massive change in air pressure your body experiences in a short time span. It's why the eardrum exists in a way, so naturally Naturally, Guevaru uses your very sense of balance to ensure his own victory. The way he does it is so effortless and evil too, because he uses nothing but his own body to accomplish it. First, he lands a Herite-style slap on his opponent's ears. This slap is hard enough to create the 14 psi of pressure that is required to rupture the human eardrum. Guevaru's slaps usually blast right through his opponent's eardrums. Then, while they're recovering from the shock of just having their body's balance-protecting covering being blown apart, he takes a few strands of his own hair, spins them coarsely, and enters it into his opponent's ear. The hair strands move just far enough inside to wrap themselves around his opponent's cochlea, and then all he has to do is pull. Guevaru must have access to great shampoo in prison because the animation shows Bakizuna's cochlea being sliced through like butter. And while it might not seem important to you, it does make a difference in terms of the effectiveness of this move. Jun combines his knowledge of the human body and his complete disregard for its safety when threatened to defeat one of the other jailers of Arizona State Prison as well. Though that time, he doesn't really screw around with titles and such, he just puts the hurt on them. Pissing during a 3-on-1 handicap match and playing loser-lose without the grip. How Jun Guevaru's insane anatomy saved him from death. The second major encounter we see Jun Guevaru having in the series is a showcase of his inhuman sensory skills and his insane resistance to physical damage. See, Guevaru shares a cell with a guy named Iron Michael, who is clearly Baki's version of real-life heavyweight champ Mike Tyson. Now, despite being one of the baddest men on the planet inside of the ring, Iron Michael isn't even top 10 in the prison rankings. And that goes to show you the gulf between sport fighters and real fighters in the Bakiverse. Michael was up for release when Baki joined Arizona State Prison, but the powers that be did not want that to happen, so they set the ASP's best jailer trio onto him in an effort to ruin his boxing career or end his life, preferably both. The three men, who are collectively known as Mouth, were able to put a beatdown on Baki's Mike Tyson that would get Joe Rogan hot, because despite being a proficient fighter, Iron Mike wasn't able to break through Mouth's superior teamwork. Each member of the trio was well-built, well-trained in combat disciplines, and worst of all, coordinated like a Russian ballerina troupe. They overwhelmed Iron Mike with so many attacks that if Jun hadn't stepped in for the man, the trio would have pleased their higher-ups greatly. But once he entered the picture, it was game over for these boys, because Jun Guevaru was simply not like other men. Instead of taking a stance when faced with Mouth, Jun takes a leak on the first one advancing at him and then proceeds to make a circle with his pee, all the while clearly antagonizing the creepily named trio. Then he disrespects them further by just lying down in the middle of the circle, inviting them to attack him unarmed. Our previous experience with Iron Mike made us think Guevaru is either a genius or insane for making such a move, but turns out he's neither of those things. He's just one insanely tough bastard. The Mouth trio curb stomped the crap out of Jun Guevaru's face, but all they managed to do was draw a bit of blood from his nose. They didn't even break it or any of his teeth, and these were full frontal stomps too. A beating that bad would usually leave a man with a concussion, or 2 or 3, but Guevaru just gets up from the beating as if it were a good wake-up call from one of his sailor comrades. He then senses the wind coming a good few seconds before it actually arrives using nothing but his ears, and then takes on his true fighting stance by putting muddy war paint on his face and flexing all his muscles, which become more business and less stocky at this point. The Mouth trio might have felt disrespected before, but they felt agitated now, and surrounded Jun on 3 sides, with one of them even taking an aerial position. Guevaru goes to mock the guy for thinking that was going to work, and the other two decide to jump him. In the split second between either of their reaction times, Guevaru spins around, ducks an incoming high kick, and punches the other guy so hard it immediately breaks half of his teeth, nearly sends his eyeballs out of their sockets, and definitely sends him flying a few yards away from where he was standing. The impact of Guevaru's lightning-fast reflexes and fist strikes make Iron Mike look like a rookie boxer, and it solidifies Jun Guevaru as yet another anatomical freak of nature within the Bakiverse. I mean, this guy is one of 3 people on Earth who is under constant satellite surveillance alongside Yujiro and Oliva, so it makes sense that his body is able to withstand such intensely destructive events that would leave regular people like you and I for months in the hospital or worse, in a body bag. No wonder Mouth disintegrated in the shower of piss and fear that it did in the show after that punch. But what is even more impressive is the fact that Guevaru was able to withstand not 1, not 2, but multiple near full power punches from Biscuit Oliva himself, all the while holding onto one end of a goddamn handkerchief. For his big confrontation with the first Unchained of Arizona State Prison, Jun Guevaru picks loser-lose as the method of dueling because it favors his bare palm style of martial arts. opponents. Lose-or-lose is a form of dueling where two people hold onto one end of a handkerchief each and then slug each other until one of them lets go. Guevaru not only doesn't let go for the most part, he also constantly keeps changing his grip to looser and looser, eventually making it an open palm contest a la the Gilberto style, which is basically a setup for both parties involved. Throughout this process, Biscuit Oliva plays along with him and keeps matching him grip for grip and blow for blow, until he is called out for playing games by his beloved Maria, at which point he slams Guevaru right in the face with a blow that sends his 100-kilo plus body flying across the prison yard, crashing into the building wall and then the floor, leaving massive craters in both. Many people thought Guevaru was dead when this happened because he didn't move, nor did he make a sound upon landing. They started cheering for Oliva, but that died down when they heard the infamous Yaiza Ho. Jun Guevaru had somehow managed to get up mostly unscathed from a blow that would shatter the bones and puncture the internal organs of any other person standing in that yard. He puts on his war paint and decides that he's going to end things with one final blow that uses the core of the earth itself to decimate his opponent. But before he can do that, Oliva lands a full power punch on Jun that sends him into a delusional dream where he thinks Yujiro has given him the title of world's strongest. In fact, this punch was so strong that it caused the world's GPS systems to malfunction, given that a significant portion of satellite technology was being used to monitor the environments of only 3 people, 2 of which were currently in a fight. If either of them moved at speeds exceeding 40 kilometers per hour, it would interfere with the navigation systems that the rest of the world uses. So that gives you an idea of just how far Guevaru would have fallen on his ass and how fast as well. Despite surviving being put through the ringer, Guevaru's harder than titanium skull couldn't put out against Biscuit Oliva's full-powered rocket punch, and this ended their fight in conclusive fashion. Now, you might be asking why Guevaru didn't just use the eardrum trick on Biscuit, but the truth is he tried and failed miserably, because Oliva just choked him before he could slice the cochlea off and saved himself a trip to the ER as well. Though Guevaru managed to land some decent hits on Oliva, even getting him good on the face on a couple of occasions, none of it was enough to put him down. In the end, after losing to Oliva fair and square, Jun Guevaru Shawshank Redemptions his way out of Arizona State Prison to keep the guards from facing embarrassment and leaves Oliva with currency from his home country as an invitation to visit whenever he wanted to. But a lot of fans were disappointed with how Guevaru's character was handled, because despite having great defense and situal awareness, Guevaru's raw offensive power left a lot to be desired. We think this is why many people came up with a theory that we're going to dispel in a moment, because as far as we know, no one besides the Hanma family has access to the demon back. Does Jun Guevaru have the demon back? If so, why didn't he use it against Oliva? If not, why do people think he did? The demon back is one of the most elusive aspects of Baki's lore precisely because it has been kept restricted to a single bloodline. Only members of the Hanma family have displayed this technique, and it might be genetic because we don't see any other character in Baki with this particular Oni-looking design on their back muscles or their brains. But that doesn't stop people from speculating if other Baki characters could be related to the Hanma family, especially Baki. And Guevaru is one of those people in our opinion. The main reason for speculation behind Guevaru having a demon back is this shot from his fight with Oliva where he gets back up on his feet. If you put it next to a shot of Baki's back with the demon back active not too far down the road in the same season, you will notice many similarities between them, but that's all they are, similarities. Jun Guevaru's back lacks the distinctive facial features that Yujiro and Baki's backs take on with the demon back active. Only the eye region can be called an out-and-out facsimile of the same. Moreover, we've already disproven the idea that the demon back can be spread outside of the Hanma family in our video on Pickle, but we'll restate it here just to clarify the confusion. Even though Jack is the son of Yujiro the Ogre himself, he had to subject himself to surgeries and drugs to gain his current level of strength, and he has never once showed signs of possessing the demon back. Biscuit Oliva's strength might be somewhat comparable to Yujiro's, but that has nothing to do with his back and everything to do with his own freakish anatomy, which you should check out on our channel if you haven't already. Guevaru's back might have the eyes, but it lacks the rest of the musculature that gives the Hanma family a natural edge in any kind of fight. Long story short, Jun Guevaru doesn't have the demon back, but he's a strong and fast son of a gun nonetheless, who can move faster than said gun or any other gun that the world's arms manufacturers can produce. He has incredible physical endurance and exceptional knowledge of the human anatomy, which he exploits to his full advantage. But when it comes to taking the top spot, he's not quite that guy yet. Marvelous verdict! But that's all we have for you guys for this video. What did you think of Jun Guevaru? Where would you place him in your Baki fighter rankings? Let us know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you guys in the next one.